everyone, and happy Sabbath. It's a pleasure to be invited in this group of people who are so beautiful and handsome, wonderful children here, and it's nice to see you. You're all God's creation, as Brother did said in the story. And thank you so much for the um, music that we have just heard, Refiner's Fire. So I was invited several months ago that um, approached me and said, I think it's Janet, can you come here to speak to you today? And I said, why not? But I was going to holiday. I was going to the Philippines before that. So I said, when I come back, we'll fix the date. And obviously, I'm here today. And thank you very much for the invitation and a warm welcome as well. I know it's cold inside, but it's getting warmer now, isn't it? Yeah, the sun is up, and I think in some other words, another country, most probably in Israel, is more warmer, isn't it? That's the current events at the moment. But today we are going to have the message for you, and it so happened that war is going on at the moment. It's not only in Ukraine, but it's also in Israel against the Palestinians. But anyway, we are going to discuss one of the well-known generals in the Bible time, and we are talking about Joshua. Okay, so our text today to ponder upon is found in Joshua chapter 1, verse 9. And basically, we are going to deal with the story of Joshua along the way. Okay? Joshua chapter 1, verse 9. It is in English Standard Version. It says, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. This is the promise that was given by God, and the same promise that was also given to Moses. Now, the story that the title of my message today is called Operation I. So I will be giving to you the background of this story. This story is not new for all of you, perhaps. It is common, yet the story gives us important lessons that would help us in our Christian walk with God. From the title itself, we would understand that it is about military encounter, about strategic plans, collateral damages, objectives, and eventually winning. I remember when I was a boy, I couldn't forget that every Saturday night, we would gather with my friends, with my cousins, to watch a TV series which is called Combat. Okay, Combat is a military series that we watch, and during that time, um, we have only one television in my place, and we have to pay to watch that series. And I find it fascinating because it's all about war against the Germans, against the Americans. So we always watch that, and we enjoy watching even though it is finishes late at night. Now, let me tell you the background of this story. The story is recorded in Joshua chapter 7 and 8. Okay? Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt, and after his death, Joshua, which is the right hand Moses during that time took place. Joshua is the son of Nun. Moses' assistant became the new leader of Israelites. The Lord God assured Joshua that what he promised Moses will be the same, to give the land to his people. And that is found in Joshua chapter 1, verse 3. It says, "Every place that the sole of your foot will tread upon, I have given you, just as I promised Moses, from the wilderness and this Lebanon as far as the great river and the river of Euphrates, all the land of Hittites to the great sea toward the going down of the sun shall be your territory." Verse 5, "No man shall be able to stand before you all the days of your life." Verse 6, "Be strong and courageous, for all you shall cause these people to inherit the land that I swore to their fathers to give." Here, God reemphasizes the great promise that Moses gave, and he will be victorious no matter what's thrown at him as the leader of God's people. It must be a moral bolster for Joshua to hear such kind assurance, right? Now, the first test of Joshua, as we know, is to conquer the walled city of Jericho. And we know the story really well. When Joshua led the Israelite, he had God had a pep talk with Joshua. And Joshua's confidence was so high. And according to history, when the country or a nation go war, the commander-in-chief always give an inspirational and motivating speech to rally the troops to meet the objectives and eventually win the battle. With God as a commander-in-chief, where could it go wrong? With specific war strategy followed, the wall of Jericho crumbled after 7 days. No casualty. However, God gave specific instruction what to do. And number one instruction, save Rahab the prostitute, the father, the mother, the brothers, and relative. What do you think Rahab had done in order to be saved? Okay, so Joshua sent spies to Jericho, and Rahab kept them and saved them. That is why um, Rahab's family should be saved. And number two, all the silver and gold and vessels and bronze and iron should be put into the treasury of the house of the Lord. As we all know, when a nation conquer another nation, all the treasures or the belongings they found being looted and stolen by the conqueror and claim the ownership of it. Now, the purpose of putting all treasures in the Lord means it is sacred. It belongs to the Lord. Joshua victory created a stir around the other countries and cities. Now, what is the meaning of I? Do you know what is the meaning of I? Okay. It is a crumpled city. Okay. The story of I served as a unique test for Joshua's leadership. The ups and downs of the story clearly reminds each one of us that life is not always a bed of roses. I means heap of ruins, as I've said. I was a place in central Canaan. I was looking and googling where is I at the moment, and the map that showed that it is part of West Bank. Okay, so at the moment, that is where the chaos is, isn't it? Okay, now it is first mentioned in the Bible in Genesis 12:8 as a place where Abraham camped. during his journey toward land of promise. That is found in Genesis 12:8. Ai was a Canaanite city located approximately 12 miles east of Bethel. Ai is notable for being the scene of humiliating defeat as a small city of Ai routed the Israelites and inflicted 3 dozens of casualties. The region around Ai became the part of the land given to the tribe of Benjamin in the distribution of the promised land. That is found in Ezra chapter 2, verse 28. Ai is the second city, Canaanite city taken by Israel in the conquest of the promised land, the first being the great victory of the Battle of Jericho. Now, I would describe the story of Ai in three categories. There was a defeat, category 1. Number 2 is surrender. And then number 3 is victory. Now, let us dive into defeat, okay? After the overwhelming success of Battle of Jericho, the second test that confronts Joshua is the city of Ai. Being the commander-in-chief in the best in his time, he sends spies to get any information to help plan the strategy. Basically, it is the same strategy used when Joshua conquered the city of Jericho. Even today, it is no different. Nations spy with each other and uses every capabilities, technologies, and many other forms just to obtain information and use it in their advantage. The spies came back with the recommendation that the city is small, send only about 200,000 or 300,000 men, and the victory is ours. And Joshua followed the recommendation. The attack was disastrous. The men of Ai chased them and killed 36 men in the process. Why did Joshua experience a humiliating defeat in the hands of the men of Ai? There are two reasons. Joshua underestimated the enemy. Okay? He sent only 200,000 to 300,000 men. Lesson: don't underestimate the enemy. The enemy is cunning and deceptive. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10 to 18 admonishes us, finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. For we do not wrestle against the flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers of this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Therefore, take up the armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand firm. Stand therefore, having fastened on the belt of truth, having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and as the shoes of your feet, having put on the readiness given by the gospel of peace. In all circumstances, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming darts of the evil one, and take the helmet of salvation and the word of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying at all times in the Spirit with all prayer and supplication. To that end, keep alert with all perseverance, making supplication from all saints. The verses actually advises us how to be victorious. To mention a few, it says putting on the armor of God. What is the purpose of the armor? Okay? So it is a protection, isn't it? Okay? Another one is prayer. Prayer is powerful. We need to have a prayerful life so that we will have strength, just like Jesus, who always communed with his Father. When we become complacent, the enemy could attack us in our weakest point. Nobody wants to lose, right? When we play competitive games, or maybe not, we always wanted to win. So we give our very best in order to secure a win. I love basketball. Michael Jordan is considered is one of the player of all time in basketball, and he did experience a lot of losses during his time, but that keeps him going. That is why he is known to be the best player of in basketball. So we know Chicago. You know Chicago Bulls. He's a player of Chicago Bulls. So he brought Chicago Bulls to a franchise of 6 NBA championships: 1991, 1992, 1993, 1996, and 1987 and 88. 1988. However, all the championships he had, he suffered defeats along the way. In 1988, Eastern Conference semifinals, they played against Detroit Pistons. They lost 4-1. In 1989 Eastern Conference Finals, they played again Detroit Pistons and they lost 4-2. In 1990 Eastern Conference Finals, the Detroit Pistons won against them again, 4-3. 3 successive years, Detroit Pistons defeated Chicago Bulls. The rivalry between the two teams are fierce that even today still exists. This rivalry between two teams gave Michael Jordan motivation to work hard, practice hard, and pushed his teammates to do the same. In 1991 Eastern Conference Finals, the Chicago Bulls met the Detroit Pistons again. This time, Chicago Bulls won 4-0, en route to their first NBA championships, and the rest is history. Napoleon Hill said, "When defeat comes, accept it as a signal that your plans are not sound. Rebuild your plans and set sail once more toward your coveted goals." Okay. Another reason why Joshua was defeated: not everyone followed the instructions. Remember what was the instructions when they invaded Jericho? That all the things that you get there should be for God. Okay? Now, when you are in the midst of a game or in a war, and if a player or anybody that doesn't follow what is the plan, it leads to chaos and eventually what? Um, you loses it. Now, it when they invade Jericho, the instruction was that all the silver and gold and vessels and bronze and iron, they should be put into the treasury in the house of the Lord. The disobedience was so devastating. In Joshua chapter 7:5 describes the reaction of people of Israelites. The hearts of the people melted and became water. They lost how many? 2 dozens of people. Maybe that was the first experience that they lost someone in their lives in in a combat. Okay, so it was devastating for them and also for Joshua. So did Joshua knew about all of these things that someone did not follow the instruction? Absolutely not. Defeat is not expected after a convincing victory over Jericho. Defeat is not expected to happen when God is in our side. Defeat is a hard pill to swallow. Nobody wants to lose. The sin of a few, everyone suffers. It is similar to our first parent when they refuse to follow God's instruction. The effect of sin is like a cancer that still eats us alive. Okay? Number two, category, surrender. Surrender is defined as stop resisting to an enemy or opponent and submit to their authority. Okay, there are three elements that Joshua surrendered to God. The first one is Joshua expressing dependence to the Lord. The reaction of Joshua towards defeat is found in Joshua chapter 7, verse 6. Then Joshua tore his clothes and fell to the earth on his face before the ark of the Lord until the evening. He and the elders of Israel, they put dust on their heads. One of the customs of the ancient Israelites is that they are allowed to express openly their grief by tearing their clothes, wearing scratchy metal called sackcloth, going without sandals or headgear, putting dirt on their heads, and rolling in the dust and ashes. Remember the story of Queen Esther. She did the same custom before presenting herself to King Ahasuerus, because you have to be when you present to the king in the story of Esther, you have to be invited, and during the time he was not invited, and we know the story. Now, dependence to God means you are like an empty vessel carrying nothing. Okay, you acknowledge God's authority, waiting for his interventions to happen. In Proverbs 16, verse 9 says, "The heart of man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps." Okay? The other point here is this: Joshua expressing his frustration to the Lord. His frustration is evident in verse 7 when he said, "Alas, O Lord, why have you brought these people over the Jordan at all, to give us into the hands of the Amorites to destroy us? Would that we have been content to dwell beyond Jordan." Verse 8, "O Lord, what can I say when Israel has turned their backs before the enemies?" Verse 9, "For the Canaanites and all the inhabitants of the land will hear of it and will surround us and cut off our name from the earth. What will you do for your great name?" It appears here that Joshua is concerned about the image of Israelites towards other countries around them rather than evaluating what went wrong. It appears also that Joshua is questioning God's plan. However, Joshua did not see the bigger picture. He was carried away with his emotions. When expressing your frustration to the Lord, you must be careful not to overcommit yourself or putting yourself over God's dividing leading. When you allow God's leading to take place, he will surely show your way. The other point that I would say here is that Joshua wants an answer. So he wants an answer because there is someone who did not follow the plan. Okay? The answer that Joshua is waiting is found in Joshua chapter 7, verse 11. It says, "Israel has sinned. They had transgressed by my covenant, and I commanded them that they have taken some of the devoted things and have stolen and lied and put them among their own belongings." This is the Lord saying to Joshua. Joshua was shocked by the revelation, but he doesn't know who did it. God instructed Joshua to consecrate yourself and bring all the tribes, and I will reveal to you the culprit, and that was the son of Achan. I mean, that was Achan, son of Carmi, son of Sabdi, son of Sarah. The tribe of Judah was taken. He confessed that he took the beautiful cloak from Shinar and 200 shekels of silver and a bar of gold weighing 50 shekels. Shekels here means weight, and a shekel is a silver coin weighing about zero point 0.4 ounces or 11 grams. I'm trying to calculate it in today's currency. It's not really that big amount. However, um, disobeying God and putting Israel to disrepute made them suffer. Achan is the head of his family, implicated his whole family in his guilt. His family may have helped conceal the plunder. Achan's disobedience regarding the devoted things was an act of unfaithfulness and showed that he did not fear God. Since God is God of order, the consequence was severe. And this is what happened to Achan. Achan was stoned to death. The stolen goods, household animals, and even tent burned while the remains covered by stones. What a tragic punishment. Okay? James 4:7 says, submit yourselves therefore to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Now, the third here is victory. Okay. So, after the defeat, Joshua must be looking forward to avenge the loss. There are three reasons why Joshua is victorious against Ai. The Lord himself guaranteed victory. Joshua chapter 8, verse 1 says, do not fear, do not be dismayed. Take all the fighting men with you and arise, go up to Ai. See, I have given into your hand the king of Ai and his people and his city and his land. The Lord recognized that the cleansing effort to get rid of the unfaithful men and women in the ranks, consecrating themselves in the presence of the Lord, must be rewarded. What must prevent Joshua to be victorious? Nothing really, because God assures him that he will give the city of Ai. Okay? In Philippians chapter 4, verse 13, I like this text. I can do all things through him who strengthens me, and that is a wonderful promise. Now, utilize every advantage. This time, Joshua chose 30,000 mighty men of valor. It is 10 times higher than the first attack of the city, where only 200 to 300 men of valor were involved. Motivated and guaranteed, Joshua and his men are ready for battle. And with the strategy and God behind, there is no losing here. Okay? In August 2, 1990, I don't know if you remember this history. Iraq invaded neighboring country of Kuwait for 2 days. On January 16, 1991, President George Bush, announced the start of what we called Operation Desert Storm. A U.S.-led coalition forces of 39 nations, 670,000 troops were supplied by 28 countries. The U.S. contributed the most of the way of resources, deploying 470,000 personnel, while the Iraqi forces believed to have been 300,000 to 350,000 men organized in 5 corps and 16 divisions. Two-thirds of the soldiers were enlisted or not well trained, and the majority of the weapons were outdated. The war ended 28 February 1991. This is a classic example of utilizing all advantages in every aspect that led the coalition forces to victory. So, how can we utilize advantages towards our fellow man? Others may use their opportunity to take advantage in a harmful way. Galatians chapter 6, verse 9 to 10, it says, "And let us not grow weary of doing" what? "Good. For in due season we will reap. If we do give up, so then have the opportunity to do good to everyone, and especially to those who are of the household of faith." This text reminds us of utilizing every advantage, and that is doing good in every opportunity that comes. Brothers and sisters, let us be deliberate of doing good, because doing good has no limit. And at the end, you will also reap what you sow. Follow the strategy. The plan was very simple. Joshua set an ambush while others positioned behind the city. Joshua and his men set camp near the city as a bait, okay, to draw the enemy. When the king of Ai and his men saw this, they pursue, leaving no one in the city. Joshua and his men withdraw, leading the enemy to an ambush. Then the Lord commanded Joshua to stretch out the javelin in his hand towards Ai. Joshua chapter 8, verse 18. And the men rose, leading the enemy to be ambushed. What is the significance of Joshua stretching his hand out with a javelin? Okay. The raising of javelin was a sign that God would deliver the city into their hands, clearly a supernatural work. This is an example of how God uses a variety of means to achieve his purposes. In Exodus chapter 17, verse 8 to 16, a similar story portraying Moses raising his hands as Joshua battled the Amalekites. Every time his hands goes down, the Amalekites destroy the Israelites. To ensure Israelites' victory, Moses' hands were supported with stone to remain lifted high, leading to victory over the Israelites. In conquering the city of Ai, God instructions are very clear: to take all the livestock, burn the city down, kill all the inhabitants, including the king, and whose body was thrown in the city gate covered with stone. 12,000, both men and women, died that day. You may say that so many lives wasted. Why did God allow this to happen? The Canaanite civilization is so thoroughly degenerate that it was beyond repentance. Among their sins was idol worship, which include also sexual perversion and child sacrifice. Every level of their society was contaminated by evil. If left alone, that evil be infected and also infect God's people. So God dealt the problem directly and indirectly. Today, the question is, what are your strategies to defeat the enemy? How do you deal with defeat in life? What are your motivation to go forward? So many questions, but I have to leave it that way for you to answer. Now, brothers and sisters, the story of I is a reminder that God has a plan for each one of us. Sometimes we don't see the bigger picture because we are not fully committed to His will. We are attracted with the beautiful things in this world can offer us in a sense that it is very hard to let go sometimes. Okay? With God's plan, He let go His Son for you and me to have victory over sin. Remember the three categories of the story of I that I mentioned. Number one category is defeat. Number two is surrender. And number three is victory. Now, we could all experience all of this in our lives. But we should all remember that in defeat, God is always there. In surrender, God will surely lead. He will acknowledge you and will reward you. And in victory, He will be able to give what is your reward. And in surrender, God will lead you all the way. Now, before I sit down, I will leave this last text for you. Colossians chapter 3, verse 23 to 24. Whatever you do, work heartily, as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord. Brothers and sisters, we may suffer defeat, and sometimes what we do is just withdraw and be in the corner. Defeat is part of our life. What is important here is you acknowledge that your plans is not doing well. Okay? That is the most important thing. We should stand up and face that mountain in front of us. But facing the mountain without God is helpless. Okay? We might experience problems in finance, relationship, you know, relatives and friends. But don't worry. God, if you commit yourself to God, God will always guide you. And that is only the assurance that we should take this morning. That the story of I is a story that reminds our life that we can be up sometimes, we can be down as well. Hold fast with your faith that at the end you will be rewarded. Victory is at hand. Be patient, brothers and sisters. Thank you.